India, with 7,500 kilometers of coastline, is one of the 27 most vulnerable countries to be hit by global warming-induced sea level rise. And inside India, the state of Orissa, with 500 kilometers of deltaic coastline and being at the head of the Bay of Bengal, is the most vulnerable state to any global climate patterns. Thus, the state is a natural place to be hit by global warming-induced climate changes.
शहे वर्ष हो गले 100 वर्ष भितर एमती बात्या देखी प्रभु गछ बच केते प्रकार घर भांगी मो घर
Much before the unimaginable super cyclone of 1999 hit the state's 9 coastal districts for 25 hours, the state was already showing symptoms of its climate being changed. Since the last decade, extreme weathers have ravaged the state at threatening frequency. During 1999 and 2005, contrasting disasters like flood, drought and cyclones have hit the state 10 times. The state's Human Development Report says that disasters have wiped out the state's 6 years of gross domestic produce, killing close to 30,000 people and displacing close to 1 million people just in 1 decade. Since the 1999 super cyclone, scientists have warned that Orissa's disasters are not that natural, but may be a dress rehearsal for global warming-induced climate change. For the people of Orissa, climate change is already happening and affecting their lives. They believe that in the future, they will suffer more due to climate change-induced disasters. Literally, we are witnessing the making of climate's first orphans. As the world wakes up hesitantly to the reality of climate change, the coastal Orissa is sure that global warming-induced sea level rise is already threatening the existence of local residents. Satabhaya, on face, is a perfect picture-card coastal village in Kendrapara district of Orissa. But the residents here are struggling for their survival. Satabhaya, having virtually zero emission of any greenhouse gases, may well be paying the price for global warming. The Bay of Bengal is making a fast ingression into the village, In the last 5 years, half the village has gone into the sea.
समुद्र आम देखिबार 1.5 किलोमीटर दूर डिस्टेंस थिला 1.5 किलोमीटर पाखु पळै आछिलानी भविष्य रे आउरी बहुत खाई जीवो आ तापर एतोळे हमर लघुचाप सृष्टि होउछ गोटा ये रे समुद्र रे से भयानक विपर्जय हो से समय रे केही भी रहि पारना दिखनी मौजा गोटा हमर जो मेदटा अछि से मेदरे आश्रय नउछि दिथर भी मु भी निजे दिथर आसी की घर छाडी की लोक नै की से मेद पर आश्रय नै आगुरु टिके दूर थिला समुद्र जोरा चाषबास होउतला एबे टोटल 71 82 कतु चाषबास टोटल बंद वर्ष हेले 3 वर्ष चाषर कोनोसी कष्ट होउतला
धान भान बिल ना पैसा अभाव चेष्टा करा परिवार मेन्टेन हे मुनि पानी सब माड़ू फसल होनी ठीक यही अवस्था पड़ीज सब पिला पड़े सब बाहर को आई पैसा बंचीचु सब चावल खती कर खाऊ
Going by the perception of residents, the sea will consume satabhaya within a few years. The story repeats in neighboring Kanhopur village also. The sea has already come inside by 2.5 kilometers in the last 15 years. As we trek along the beach, it is very common to find the remains of Satabhaya and Kanhopur history in their watery grave. Agricultural lands, mud foundations of houses, and the remains of a rice processing mill. Some 18 more villages on this beach are on their way to a watery grave. Everybody points deep inside the sea to locate his or her original homes.
बहुत बाटो जाई से कला पानी पर्यंत जो काया का देखाउची सेते वर्ष सारा समुद्र जाई सेठी घर थिला घर आगु सारा समुद्र एटा हमर घर बाड़ी थिला समुद्र पानी ढेउरे 71 मसिया बात्यार सब भासी गला केते घर केते गई झाड़ पारे सब रहिले गछ चढ़ी की आउ जे जी थले झाम पाई भितरे घर कर रहिल गणबाड़ी नाही सब मुना तो रहि गला आ खाइबा को खाद्य मिलला.
One can easily guess the march of the sea from the fact that 5 of the 6 tube wells of the villages set up at regular distance in the main street of the village are inside the sea. During high tide, the sea reaches near the sole tube well. The tube well remains a gauge post for the people to measure the sea's incursion.
एटा होती 32 वर्ष रे नलक वर्तमान सी थिला आगे गां मझिरे वर्तमान ग्राम शेष रे ग्राम सब चली गलानी ए गुटिया घर केवल मात्र अछि याक बाद देले आ घर उठी भी नाही. आगुरी सातबार थिला घर बराईपुर रे आगुरी जनबसति नथिला क्रमश बाली पुति पकेला तेणु माने स्थल भाग हो गला तेणु रहिले एटा जमी थिला सातभायरु ए 19 मसिया साइक्लोन खाई गया पर एठी उठी आसी ए बाउंड्री बाद 3 किलोमीटर दूर थिला राजाघर से राजाघर कोठा सीधा सब गाँव उड़ा थिला 2 माइल कि 3 किलोमीटर ऊर्ध्व हबो खाई आसिलानी समुद्र.
Satabhaya was a cluster of 7 villages. Now, only 2 are partially left out. The official map also points to that.
এটা ছিল আমার 7টা মৌজা 7টা মৌজার সব সমুদ্র পাশে যাই বর্তমানে ছিল 2টা মৌজা সে 2টা মৌজারু বর্তমানে কানপুরটা সবু খাই গেলেনি মো দেখিবারে 2 মাইল কোন রাস্তা সমুদ্র গর্ভরে গলানি से सारे घाट थोड़ा सेपटे मोहनपुर गोविंदपुर कानपुर सेपटे थोड़ा घाट ये घाट न थोड़ा बुझल दरी तोरे पकुदा घाट बुझल आगु देखी गोटे से उच्चा बाली न था उच्चा बाली से खाई गलानी बहुत वर्ष घर रहा भितर समुद्र भितर बुझल आ से दांड था सेमती से दांड था दांड माने समुद्र नहीं गला हाँ ଗାଁ ତ ବିରାଟ ଗାଁ ଥିଲା ଏଇଟା ବୁଝିଲ ଆଉ ଆସିକି ଆମେ ଏଇଠି ରହିଛୁ ଆମେ ଛୋଟ ଛୋଟ ଏଡ଼ିକି ହେଇଥିଲୁ 10-12 ବର୍ଷ ଖଣ୍ଡେ ହବ ବାପା ଆମକୁ ଆଣି ଏଇଠି ଆମେ ମୁଁ ଜାଣିଛି 12-14 ବର୍ଷ 15 ବର୍ଷ ଖଣ୍ଡେ ହବ ବୁଝିଲ ଏଇଠି ଆସି ଆମେ ଘର କରୁ ଆସିଲାଣି 2 କିଲୋମିଟର ଆଇଲାଣି ମୁଁ ଦେଖିଲି ବହୁତ ରଜାଘରେ କୋଠା କରିଥିଲେ କୋଠା ରହିଲାଣି 2 କିଲୋମିଟର ବାଟ କୋଠାରେ ଖେଳୁଛୁ ଆମେ ଆଉ
Every day, the sea is consuming a little bit of the villagers. Last September, one night, Kanhopur village saw its lone school washed away by the sea.
ମୁଁ ଏ ସ୍କୁଲରେ ପଢୁଥିଲି 6 ମାସ ତଳେ ସମୁଦ୍ର ଭସେଇ ନେବା ହେତୁ ଆମେ ଆଉ ପଢି ପାରୁନୁ
ଆଉ ସେ ସମୁଦ୍ରରେ ଆଉ କଣ ବସାଇଲା ଏଠି
ଘର ଆଉ ଜାଗା ନେଇଗଲା
It has been for the 3rd time in 2005 that they have moved out of their homes when the sea unusually ingresses. As one can see from the top of a huge sand dune, the sole insurance against sea ingression for Satabhaya village, the sea is already encircling the villages from 3 sides. Why is that happening? Local people hold climate change and change in sea level as a culprit. The debate whether it is normal sea erosion has also not stood ground, given the ingression is very consistent. People believe that the rising temperature of the sea has resulted in sea level rise. Also, the warming area is causing more cyclonic conditions, further threatening their fragile coastal villages. There is a similarity between people's perceptions and that of the scientific community.
If you analyze the number of cyclones and storms and surges and other natural climate, natural disaster, then Orissa is visited by more than 95 natural disasters over last 100 years. So it is always prone to natural disaster, and whether these natural disasters are any way linked to global warming, it has to be scientifically proved.
If you analyze the number of storms that has hit Orissa coastline in India in the last about 100 years, 422 was in Orissa itself. So I think that shows it is a favorable, sort of a location where the storms forming in the bay is a more tendency of hitting Orissa coast.
जो लघुचाप समुद्र सृष्टि होउची करंट सृष्टि हेकी से पानी रो ताप बढ़ी जाउची से ऑटोमेटिक मारी जाउची तापर आमे जो साइक्लोन देखुछु किंतु आगे गुटे लघुचाप जदि गुटा वर्ष भीतर हेजी बहुत एबे तो 10-15 टन नेखा लघुचाप गुटा वर्ष भीतर आउची
अंशुघात आम यही 3-4 वर्ष भितर जानूँ सी अंशुघात गरम दिने दिने जब कमी कौन हम दिने ये 2 वर्ष तले मुझे पट्टामुंडे जाकि 12टा बेले गंडा होटेल खाईदमु ये गरम हला से 2 दिन आम कौन प्रकार रखा पारना आम जो नौच घाट थिला आम से नौच घाट को पलैया चल सी पवन हम सीटी भी रही पारना से नौच घाट देखिए जुआर खरा बेले होता जाई से जुआर सब पेटे बुझे पेटे जमी 2टा-3टा टाइम है ठंडा है आम आसनु राजनगर 2टा गरम आम पड़ू से 2 थर आम नाकुरु प्राय पवन सब बाहर आम मरी जाइछन
The scientific community points fingers at global warming induced sea level rise as the probable culprit.
People's perceptions are very important. I give a completely high ranking of that. But at the same time, everything should not be left to perception. It should be verified through science and fortified through our knowledge, and also communicating between different groups of people in the world who are working in the same direction. It's not a scientific debate, as I always say now. It is a real phenomena. It is happening, and it is happening. The signals are already visible all over the world.
Whether Satabhaya area is a victim of sea level rise needs more convincing, but the Bay of Bengal is definitely rising due to global warming.
This change in the number of post-monsoon low-pressure areas forming in the Bay of Bengal, it is certainly due to the rise in sea surface temperature.
Theoretically, global warming can heat up the sea, triggering cyclones and also a rise in sea level. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, reports that the bay is heating up and rising by 1 millimeter every year. India's National Institute of Oceanography has also pointed at sea level rise in the east coast. Going by scientific modeling, a 1 millimeter of sea level rise will lead to submergence of 425 acres of land. The warmer sea also triggers a phenomenon called thermal expansion.
If you take water in a Borosil jar and warm it up, you can see that it will expand with the rise in temperature. And that's the same thing, any liquid, it may expand when you warm it up. So in the ocean, which is the largest body of water, when the temperature rises, it will expand. Till now, it is the thermal expansion which is due to the sea surface temperature increase, which has led to the sea level rise. Now there are additional factors which are likely to contribute to a more rapid sea level rise in the decades to come.
The sea level rise at a particular location is a combination of global sea level rise and local trends. Like Orissa has lost 56% of its mangrove forest in the last 25 years. The mangrove forests are the natural barriers against the sea. Without this, the sea level rise will have wide-scale submergence.
The coastal zone is obviously under threat from a number of pressures. On the one hand, you've got sea level rise at a rate of about 1 to 2 millimeters a year. And so we have sea level rise, and many parts of the world have sea level rise. There are parts of the Indian subcontinent where you have this too. But sea level rise is going to accelerate, and we're also going to get warmer waters. We're going to get storm surges. We'll get changes in cyclone activity. So there are going to be a number of pressures on the coastal zone. If regions are protected by mangroves, or if they have coral reefs off the shore, then those natural habitats reduce the wave energy that you have, and that prevents damage inland. It reduces the extent of flooding inland, and so protects the livelihoods of people. So there's a very good reason for people to actually preserve their natural habitats in the coastal zone, their mangroves, and to do their best to conserve their coral reefs, because in the tropical regions, those are natural defense mechanisms which will potentially reduce the extent of flooding.
Also, the IPCC estimates a sea level rise of 15 to 38 centimeters by the middle of this century. The bay will make a fast ingression in the state without the mangrove protection.
दरिया बराबर लोक घर द्वार भांगी नहीं जाऊँगी राति पाइले भी ये घर ये जो घर अच्छा आप आसिले आम से बसती ये बरस भी रही ना दिन अच्छी राति बेलू लहड़ा आसला तड़ी नहीं गला जंगल को नहने दरिया बुड़ीगला से मैंने कहले ये धर आम सातया को झुओ दमु आम झुओ मरीज कहीं कथा करके आम सातया को झुओ दमु ना यही नुणा ढेउ कर घर द्वार भांगा दृष्टि से भय कर आम सातया को झुओ दमु ना सातबाहर झुओ नौ किंतु सातबाह को दबू।
This may well indicate the fate of the Satabhaya areas and for the whole of India's coast. As the global debate on climate change rages, the bay ravages Orissa's coast. for the orphans of climate in Orissa, their future is a big question, and we all owe them an answer.